where are we? Where are we? We're not at home. We're doing reviews on the road, and we're just going to be doing that for a little while right now. But while we're here, the reviews, they're still going to be the reviews. That's it. We're just going to have to sit through it for a little bit longer. Milo. So the flies don't come. Milo is a Wisconsin rapper.
Beep.
This, I believe, is his second full-length commercial project. I've been following Milo's exploits for a while now, from mixtape to mixtape, from EP to EP, from album to now new album. And it's been a pretty interesting road, seeing him not only come into his own and take a pretty unique and interesting approach to hip-hop music just in general, but also link up with heroes of his through Hellfire Club, which is a rap collective that he's affiliated with. It's just been cool to see him over the past few years become an entirely different rap artist, even if today he's still kind of rocking with that spoken word-ish flow, which isn't really super exciting, but it's very emotional in delivery, I think, a lot of the time. And Milo also has the tendency to just be a little too obtuse, frustratingly obtuse, or directionless, or aimless. Large, pointed, here's what I'm saying type statements aren't really Milo's MO, but that seems to be changing a little bit with this new full-length album, which in a recent interview with him, he told me that it was going to be a more confrontational record. And after giving it numerous listens, I would have to agree. On this new project over here, vocally and lyrically, Milo is far more expressive than he was on the somewhat monotone Toothpaste Suburb. I would say as expressive as he was on his debut mixtape, but at this point, he's far more mature and I think has things to say that carry a lot more weight. Still clever, but not so much silly as much as he is, I guess, aggressive and maybe a little fed up on some of these tracks. There's a serious urgency to a lot of what he's saying on this album, even if the message he's trying to deliver isn't apparent on the first listen. And the newly found fire in Milo's vocal delivery on this LP matches really well with Kenny Segal's beats, who I understand does the production from the beginning to the end of this album. And the instrumentals on this record, they're synthetic, they're serene, they're easygoing, but they're very melodic and beautiful and intricate. They have a very strong jazzy vibe to them as well. So if you're looking for some modern synthetic jazz rap, this is the record to try. I love how eerie a lot of the melodies on this LP are, especially on tracks like Animist, or how sad and somber they can run on the song Souvenir, which is toward the beginning of this album. There is a fantastic and very expressive lyrical feature from Hemlock Ernst on this track, and the first half of the song features mostly Milo on here, and he lyrically, I think, is kind of diving into his experiences in LA recently, kind of being amongst these art rappers who he kind of looks up to and gets a lot of experience and inspiration from, but kind of growing sick of the lifestyle and kind of the position that he was in over there, which in the interview that I had with him, he kind of expressed drove him back to where he is now in Wisconsin to sort of fly solo and do his own thing. And on this track, lines pop up where he talks about how his naivete leads him to being taken advantage of, how he can rap like a black man, he says on the track, which is one of the many points on this record where he addresses a lot of racial stereotypes. Obviously, Milo talking about how much he loves hip-hop on this record, but sort of avoiding doing it in kind of a traditional way much of the time. However, there are some spots on this record where he is legitimately flowing in the way that you would expect a rapper to flow. And he actually sounds great during moments on the record like this. However, his lyrics during these spots are especially biting, which I like a lot. However, he doesn't really abandon sort of the more soft-spoken and I guess spacious flows that he's typically known for. I would say this record features a pretty good mix of these two sides of Milo. He continues to do what he's been doing better while showing us a whole different side of him that he's never really shown this much up until this point. On the song Zen Scientist, Milo, over a very kind of patient beat, is super aggressive in his own, I guess, kind of Milo way. He comes off so determined and hungry on this track, and I love the pitched vocals on this song, as well as many of the other tracks here too. And the vocal feature from MYKA 9 is gorgeous as well. I love lyrical imagery on this track, like the moment where Milo's like, kisses down your arm like Gomez. Rather than giving us this onslaught of lyrical spaghetti to sort of untangle, I think he's given us some of the best lyrics that he had for this record, and it just leads to this album having a lot more punch, like on the song ENCYCLOPEDIA, where I think Milo talks not only about some racial issues on this record, but also how he's growing as a rapper, making mention of some really interesting turns of phrase on here, like when he says, "This is a mason jar with the last laugh," and we get this demonic laugh sort of popping out in the track. It's a pretty cinematic and sound-rich record. Also making mention of the fact that he plays these language games on his tracks with his lyrics too. The project takes an even more aggressive turn on the song Going No Place, featuring Elucid, who is one of the grimiest rappers in the New York underground right now, and Milo goes toe-to-toe with him or collaborates with him and keeps up with a flow that at some points feels a little Earl inspired, and Milo even gets kind of aggressive with his lyrics, talking about giving someone a hooked fist. Totally unexpected for Milo, but the thing is, he's sounding more frustrated than he ever has on a track, and it sounds legit. There's just a lot of issues on this record where Milo is venting really hard on a lot of things that he seems to have some very strong opinions on or just had negative experiences with while writing lyrics on this album, like on the track True Nen with Open Mike Eagle, who has a very cartoony, over-the-top verse in the second half, but Milo in the first half is, again, sort of going into this craft that he has such an incredible passion for, talking about how he avoids soda because he can't afford health insurance because he writes rap songs for a living. On the track Yo Milo, which I guess is kind of named after his Twitter account, but in a way is kind of a series of snide and sort of tongue-in-cheek and clever responses to people who listen to his music, who I think he doesn't feel has like a full understanding of what exactly he does or what he's trying to do, talking about how he purposefully makes the lyrics abstract and the messages that he says difficult and obtuse, and leaves the listeners playing with and fiddling with little pieces and bits of the images, how he has people talking about how he's their favorite artist as far as like music that black people are making goes. And unexpectedly, this track occurs over what is pretty much like a dance beat. Yeah, Milo on top of like a dance beat. It's strange, but it actually works. Milo's flow, which is way more traditional on this track than it is on any other song here, is fantastic. It actually goes over really well, and he gets even speedier on the closing track on here, which is an ode to Bus Driver, which isn't too surprising, not only because Milo just holds him in such high regard, but there are some moments on this record where I really feel like he was heavily influenced by a lot of what Bus Driver was doing on his last full-length album, Perfect Hair, sort of riding these fringes between making something that is abstract, that is obtuse, but is simultaneously very bold and in your face and uncompromising. I feel like Milo went into this record right here with the same general concepts, but had a completely different outcome because he's a completely different artist. Still, though, he does a really great job of, I guess, painting a surreal and playful and flattering picture of Bus Driver as a rapper, as an artist, while toward the beginning of the album, he seems kind of frustrated with what might have been the short end of the stick while playing so closely shoulder to shoulder with a lot of these people while he was more affiliated, more involved with Hellfire Club. He still seems to have an incredible amount of admiration for these artists who have influenced him so much. I really love this record. I think it's Milo's best since his Things That Happen Today, Things That Happen at Night EPs. I will say, though, I wished it was a little longer. I mean, this track is really maybe 1 or 2 tracks away from an EP, and there are some songs on here like True Nen as well as Animist, which I just wish were longer or had a stronger ending to it. But even with a lack of incredibly strong endings on a handful of these tracks, because there are some songs that dip right into the next track, interestingly, this record is still very fun. It's very bold. It's very moving. There's a lot of large, strong statements on this album. Even on the softest track here, Napping Under the Echo Tree, where Milo, his flow style is just shoulder to shoulder with spoken word on this track, and the beat is really slow motion, very syrupy, very slow paced, and there's some wonderful strings woven into this very pitched sample. And Milo's lyrics on this track are easily some of the most powerful on the entire record. If you're looking for a rapper who has a very alternative approach against some pretty melodic instrumentals with a strong jazzy flavor to them, I mean, I really think in a lot of ways Milo is kind of advancing the whole idea of jazz rap a little bit. And it just goes over super, super well, super, super tasteful and personal and wonderful. It's awesome to kind of get this kind of in-depth look into Milo's psyche when it comes to these very intense emotions on the topics that he addresses throughout this record. You really got to pay attention to the lyrics on this thing, but it's definitely worthwhile. It's definitely worth reading into. He's not quite as confusing as he typically can be, and I think he really makes re-listening to this album worthwhile with his lyrics, and also with Kenny Segal's wonderfully intricate and just very pretty instrumentals. I'm just going to keep saying nice things about this album if I keep going. I'm feeling a light to decent 8 on this thing. Transition. Have you given this album a listen? If you have, what did you think of it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Why? What do you think I should review next? And that's it. Anthony Fantano, music forever.